Hello there, my name is Ismas, and let's break down how I made this scene here, especially the materials because the modeling is a bit basic. You can see even this character is not really a character; it's uh, just some cylinder with a sphere, just to and then covered with this cloth to give it the illusion that is a character, and did some uh, shape keys to give it that walking effect. But we're going to especially look at the materials here because again the modeling is very basic. I just created a few walls from a plane, added a solidify modifier, and used booleans to cut out the doorways and things like that. It's the materials that are a bit complicated. Maybe let's just look at a few of them. Because they're a mixture of a few textures, and so let's break that down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a blend file that includes all these materials, and I'll be giving them out for free, so you can download them and examine them yourself. But let's first break them up and see what's going on. So the first thing we have is this these cracks here, and I didn't want to UV unwrap this, so that's why you see that I'm using object mapping. Whenever you're using object mapping, you have to change the projection type here from flat to box, or otherwise your textures are going to look stretched in some areas, like you see here. So you need to change that to box so that they are not stretched. You can see we have some tiling issues, but that won't really matter because we're going to be mixing them over with different textures that will break up the tiling. So the contrast of these cracks was not enough for me, so that's why I added a car ramp here to get better contrast and remove some of the details that I didn't want. So you can see what we had, and this is what I get after adding this car ramp. And then I have this other texture. Again, I didn't want to UV unwrap this. Since I had a solidify modifier, I applied it after, but I had a solidify modifier to kind of give these walls some thickness because it was just a plane, and then I added a solidify modifier to add the thickness. And if you have a solidify modifier, you can't UV unwrap the extruded part or the thickness. So that's why I added that. And this was, as you can see, a black and white image, but I wanted it to have some color in it. That's why I added a color ramp and I colorized it like that. Then mixed it over with these cracks so that I have something like that. I used the mix RGB node to multiply these cracks on top of the texture we have here, the colorized texture, so that we have the cracks and the texture, the colorized texture as well. Then I wanted to use this map here for the roughness, and to control the roughness, to have better control over the roughness, I added a color ramp here. That way I can increase the roughness or reduce it. And if I wanted to have more rough areas, I can play with these nodes here, and added this add math node just to have an overall control over the roughness, and fed that into the roughness node. And then for this here, after I mixed this with the cracks, I used a hue and saturation to play around with the saturation a bit because I think it was oversaturated here, so I reduced that a bit here. You can see I think I increased the saturation just a bit. I reduced, I think, yeah. Then this is what I had. You can see how the roughness looks here. And I wanted to have some bumps, but I didn't want them to be too much. So again, I used this here for our bump. I didn't want it to be too powerful because I wanted the walls to be a bit smooth. So instead of giving it a high bump, value. I made sure it was very small, but still there to get some details in there. And again, if you go to the render settings, you can see that I push my ambient occlusion to a factor of 2. By default, it's a factor of 1 because I think a factor of 2 gave this a better medieval look that I was going for. So yeah, that's why I did that. Now basically that was the texturing for this material, and for the wood it's basically the same thing, just a few slight changes. Just again, I used projection mapping, object mapping for the texturing because I didn't want to UV unwrap this, and you can see that we still have some tiling issues, but because of the placement of the camera, we won't be seeing that tiling issue. That's why I didn't worry about it too much. Again, I didn't want this color here because it was a bit, it didn't look medieval, or it didn't give me the look I wanted. So I use a mix RGB node to overlay another color on top of this so that I can control the color I want with the overlay blending mode. Again, I fed this into a color ramp to get the roughness, and that's basically that's what I'm repeating over and over to get the materials for whatever I want to do. And now for the text, for the carpet here, again I did the same thing. Instead here I just used UV unwrapping because it was a simple plane, so it was easy to UV unwrap. Again, you can see the original texture. Actually, this is for this side. This here, I can see the first thing I wanted to do, because this is a carpet, you'd have it is a squishy, smooth carpet. I wanted to have some bumps in that, but I didn't want the bumps to be produced by the pattern we are seeing here, which is from this image here. So I used something like a concrete, I think it's a carpet texture that I tiled up, and I used that for my bumps. You can see the bumps we are getting. And from this camera, you can see how it looks like a real carpet. And again, I use, instead of using this image for the roughness, I used this image to get the roughness and the bump maps. And that's how I got the carpet. Again, I'll be sharing these materials with you. Yeah, so let's see, what else do we have? I think that's, yeah, again, I used the same material for this round carpet, which I found on Google. I used the ceiling as circle, and basically did the same thing we had here, except I changed the material a bit, the texture here, to switch it to the round carpet I had, the round texture image I had, and basically the same settings. This is using the same, this chair here or table is using the same material as the rest of the objects, and you can see we are having tiling issues, but because we have a carpet on top of this, that is not something I worried about. Basically that's it. So the fire was something I think was a bit interesting. I didn't want to do a smoke simulation, so I opted to fake the fire a bit, and you can see what we are having. The problem is that it sometimes goes out of this thing, but otherwise it would look better, and you can make it so that it doesn't go out of that. And actually, let me first hide this. You can just scale this down like that so that it never leaves the face, I think. And the way I made the animation is I use this displacement modifier, and I used an object that I moved up and down, an empty that I was moving up and down. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, I'm not sure where the empty is, but basically what it does, whenever it moves up, this also starts animating. So let me just show you here. Let me just add an empty. And so by default, the texture coordinates are set to local. So if you want to control the displacement, you can change it to object and select the object you want. And now if I move this up and down, you can see how the fire is animated. So let me turn it back to the default, to the original version. So and if I wanted this not to go out out of this vase, what I can basically do is let me emphasize this. I would select these bottom faces. Make sure I'm selecting all of them, turning on proportional editing so that we can scale most of them like that. And what I would do is add a vertex group, maybe the inverse of the selection, assign that, and in our displacement modifier, make sure that it's only those vertices that are being displaced. And I think I need to make sure that it's only around from these vertices here and up. Only the top vertices are. So I need to remove all these vertices from that group. Yeah, so that we get something like that. You can also make sure that these vertices are not being displaced. But now you can see that we are no longer getting that fire going outside. And the way I affect the fire, basically, I just found an image. Let me see if I can find that. The fire image here. So this image here. Let me select the material. So, and basically I have that image. And from that image, I created a black and white mask for the fire. And fed that into the alpha channel, and then got the color output of this, use the hue saturation just to give it a more powerful value, and then emitted, and then connected that to the emission, and then this to the base color, and basically that's what we have. But if you're using Eevee to render this, make sure that you turn on you change the blend mode to either alpha blend or alpha hashed. The reason I used alpha hashed is that because I'm using volumetrics in my scene. If you look at this here, if you change this to alpha blend and you have volumetrics in, you start to see some weird artifacts. So usually alpha blend gives you the best results, but when you have volumetrics as well in your scene, it kind of messes out a few things. So that's why I'm using alpha hashed here. So that I get a clear blend of what I want. You can see. What else? What else? Guess we can talk about this character here and how I managed to make them here. This character here. Okay, so basically that was just again a cylinder, something like this. Just made sure that they have enough polygons, and just animated them moving forward. So something like that. And I added the cloth on top of them, so something like this. And what I did was I parented the cloth to the character. So if I give this a cloth modifier, and see it's just falling, but make sure that this is also given a collision physics property. can see. Oh, by the way, if you parent the cloth directly to the object, it won't actually work. It won't follow the cloth. It won't follow the character. So what I did is I selected something like 2 vertices here, and then added a hook to them. So Control H to add a hook. Now when I move this, you can see those vertices follow that hook, and now I can parent the hook to the character. Control P, keep offset. If I play back, nothing will happen. It will just still fall down. But what you can do is, with those vertices still selected, you can go to the vertex group, create a new vertex group, assign the selected vertices, and go to the cloth properties, and under I think shape, you can turn on pinning group. Make sure that you select the group that you have just created, and now if you play back, you can see it follows the character. So I also made sure that this floor or carpet had a collision property, so that this can collide on top of that. And I added another cloth on top of, just another cloth around here, so that we have 2 layers of cloth, and I made sure that this had both had a collision property, so that they can collide with each other. Basically, that's how I got to this character. And what I did so that this doesn't start off being flat like this is that I made sure, so let me first disable this animation for a second. I made sure to have this cloth settled something like this, and then go to the cloth modifier, apply it, and then re-add it. After it's settled, you can see now it's settled. Now you just, let me first increase the subdivisions just a bit. Then you would re-add it back with everything. Make sure you also add the pinning group back. And you can see now it's settled, and now we can turn back the animation, and basically it's what we see here. Let me just show you. Yeah, basically I let the cloth fall until it settled like that, and I applied the cloth modifier. That way the cloth simulation can start from that position, from that deformation as the initial deformation. Let's see, what else can we talk about? The lighting is basically this, very simple, just added. Actually, this is how it would look without the volumetrics and everything. I think I'm missing an image here. It's supposed to be here. Okay. So for the lighting, I added these 3 area lights to push light through those windows, and then added a few filler lights inside here to just so the room is a bit lit, and that was it. So I don't think there is anything else I can explain here. This here, the banners were very simple. I just modeled them directly, just pushing vertices around. I can watch the time lapse on my Top Channel 1-on-1, I think here, and yeah, but basically that's it. Yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.